Hey, and just a quick reminder that the audio-only versions of these Vital MX interviews are available on the Vital MX podcast page. Search for it anywhere you get your pods and let your friends know about it. What's going on, Michael Mosiman? How are you today?
What's going on?
How you been feeling, man?
Dude, glad to be on the show. I've been feeling pretty good, getting back to it. Haven't been riding a whole lot, but as far as like, I just started a little bit later than some of the other guys, but yeah, getting back to it. We're getting the bike sorted out, so it's coming around.
Yeah. Any particular reason you're running a little behind that you want to talk about, or not so much?
Yeah, I broke my neck at Ironman.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so I broke my neck there in the first lap, and then I finished the race. I got 14th, and then I went and got checked out. I didn't think it was broken, but it, like, some of the harder landings, it was like not feeling good.
Yeah.
And so anyways, after the fact, I went and got checked out, and then they were like, yeah, we don't think you should race, and send me off in an ambulance. And then that's a whole story. And then anyways, I had broke C5 and C6.
Wow.
Stable fractures, but scary stuff. So
yeah, you guys kind of kept that on the DL a little bit. We didn't hear much about it. I knew you'd been pretty quiet, and I kind of was asking around and heard that might be the case. Was it just what was the crash like at Ironman? What happened?
So I didn't get the best of start, and it was kind of just like, all right, it's time to go. Like, let me just blow some doors off some fools and get to the front while I can, because it's the best time to go to the fronts at the beginning. And anyway, so I started, trying to make some moves, and I came down off of Godzilla, that big table down, and then there was ruts all the way across, and the smaller ones were on the outside, and then like the worst ones are on the inside. And then the outside berm at the far turn had been freshly prepped. So there was like 6-7 people that went to the inside, one dude that went to the outside, and I went straight down the middle. And I said, I'm just going to bonsai to that outside berm, and I'm going to go around a bunch of people right now. And so I was, bonsaiing as one does. And I was going down the middle, and the guy from the outside starts cutting across to go to the inside. And I was not expecting it, because like there's a perfectly good, smooth, fresh prepped outside berm. And there's like way too many people on the inside. It's tight corner. So I just did not fathom it. And the guy cut over, and then I'm in the middle, and I was just fine. But then, I'm going fairly quick, and he came over, and I braked to miss him. And then there was like braking bumps, and now instead of bonsaiing, I'm on the brakes in the braking bumps trying to miss a guy. So I missed him, but because I was on the brakes in like the worst section of brake, I got kicked and then went over the bars and kind of straight on my head, and managed to break my neck. So,
wow, that's scary. That is, that's that'll make you.
Yeah, it's real frustrating too when you get to the end. And it's like, what would I have done differently there?
Right. Yeah, it's just one of those things with this sport where you just, it's dangerous, right? Things happen, and you have to rely on other people at times to hopefully not do something dumb, as well as you make a mistake, and it just happens.
Yeah, and it's tricky too, because like, I don't know, I'm not unaware of the reputation I'm getting, and it's like, some are totally me, and sometimes when you go down, it's like totally not your fault, and it's just tough, because you take all of them, put them on the they'll look the same. But
yeah, well, you brought that up, and I have that in my notes that we've heard some guys say, hey, look, Michael Mosiman, like you're having great finishes, but then there's always these little things, these little mistakes. You've talked about it. You just said you're aware of it, but like, how do you, I don't know how you fix some of those things, right? Because sometimes it's freak, sometimes it's not your fault. there's just some guys that just seem to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, you know, and I don't know how do you overcome that?
It's a good question. It's not an easy question.
No.
But I think I do have a path, and I'll try to explain it. There's one part where I feel like concentration, right? And, you know, people always say, oh, you know, remember to focus. And it's like, all right, focus on what?
Sure.
You know, it's like, what do you want me to focus on? There's a million things. So there's part of it that if, as I'm in the off season critiquing myself, as I'm getting back riding, I'm like, you know, I think I could do with better focus. Because sometimes it's like God's given me, you know, some skills and to where sometimes it's just coming easy for me. And then I start thinking about other things, and it's not, you know, it's not good.
Right.
And so that concentration piece is like something, and the way you focus on that is you got to focus on, you know, what you're doing in the present moment. You can't be thinking about the results. You can't be thinking about the person behind you. You can't be thinking about, you know, the person in front of you. You got to be thinking about what you're doing in the present moment. And nobody does that perfectly. And so it's just a matter of, you know, kind of, I think that's a piece that as far as on my end that I think is really important. And then I think there is a piece of like on the bike end, in my earlier years of racing, and I think even this past year, some that like when you get it at race pace, you tend to push things, you know, a little harder, and you tend to ask a little bit more of your bike than you would in a different, you know, scenario maybe. And when you're, you know, trying to up it one notch when you're already at notch 10, and your bike is, you know, used to you riding it at notch 9.5, then, you know, I think there might be room to, you know, stiffen things up to, so that, you know, the bike can take it when you try to cut real hard, or, you know, things of that nature. So I think there's some concentration. I think there's some, you know, bike wise that we're working on.
Okay.
And, yeah, it's kind of, everything's got to come together. You know, it's hard. It's not an easy thing. And then the other thing is, the one that I've made quite a lot of progress on, though it's not always visual, is the self-image. And like, if you're a 15th place guy and you believe you're, you know, a 15th place guy, then if you get a top, you know, 10 start, it's going to be really hard for you to stay in the top 10. Like, you're probably going to drift back to about 15th. Mm-hmm. But also, if you're a 15th place guy and you go down in the first turn, like, because you're a 15th place guy, that's going to drive you to get up to, you know, about 16th or something, you know, 17th, where, and in some ways you'll ride better, you know, kind of where you feel like you should fit in is usually about where you'll fit in. And so I think that it's not an easy thing, you know, to expect yourself to fit in first place, you know, or 30 seconds out ahead, or you know, wherever that is. It's like, and so I think I've made a lot of progress in believing in myself, in my capabilities. But if you're in a position, you know, in a good position that you don't see yourself being able to fulfill, then naturally your performance is going to start to drop, and you're going to see more mistakes.
That's just naturally. Yeah, that's a really great theory, and I see where there's a lot of truth to that. I like that. I want to step back just for a second. We were talking about, you talk about focus, and maybe sometimes focusing on, you don't focus on necessarily what you needed to, but you're still focusing on race stuff, like, right? Because like, if it's me out there, I'm like, oh, hey, as soon as I get done, I get to go get some Mexican food. Do I want fajitas or enchiladas? That's not where your mind's going, right?
I mean, it can. I mean, I have a memory from when I was like 13 in the racing the Junior World Championships. I was in 7th place, and I had no one. It was, you know, a huge gap in front of me and a huge gap behind me. And I remember I was in the back corner. It was like dead silent. There's no fans, no anything in the track's European, so it's super spread out. And I remember I was replaying like the movie Taken in my head that I watched the weekend before.
Yeah, okay.
And I was just like replaying it over and over. And I remember realizing I was replaying it in that back corner. I was like, should probably focus on the race. Like, Junior World Championship is a big deal.
Yeah.
So that's a memory that sticks out. I wouldn't say I have like, things like that often today.
Right.
And I'm very focused, but just being like, I guess I know the mental side, if that makes sense. And it's like, it's difficult to understand in the first place and to like seek out understanding. And then once you do understand, it's even harder to like apply it. And that's where I'm at. And I would say this past year I did a fairly good job, but at some points I could have certainly done a better job of applying some of the mental strategies and exercises. So
gotcha.
I as you were describing it, I feel like it was kind of the similar thing that we saw with Stu a lot. Like he would, he'd be in first or whatever, and it just, you could see the concentration just maybe was just gone for us half a second. And like,
it doesn't take much.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something that I've been always kind of a scatterbrain ADHD guy myself. And I kind of have to do that same thing too, where I have to like have a song or something in my head. It kind of keeps the background going so I can focus on what's ahead of me. I think that's something that it can be overcome, but I definitely understand where you're coming from with that. And your image on it was really nice.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I have a little bit more to say on the topic.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well.
Go ahead.
That brings up, another thing that's really tricky is like, it's complicated because you're told to focus, but then I would say all of us can agree that some of our best performances come when it's almost automatic, and we don't feel like we're trying that hard or even focusing that hard, and it's just coming naturally. And like, that's reality for me. And even in some of those performances, your mind can wander. And I think another thing that I found really, profound in my riding is that if like over trying is probably, one of the most prevalent things in my riding, and in, I would say, most riders, when you see mistakes is when we're really trying hard. And I think when you over try, it's almost like you clog up the space mentally, and you're really prone to, making more mistakes ultimately, because you're not letting it happen. You're not letting it flow. You're not, being patient to let the bike settle or to do what it needs to do. And, I think that's why maybe with different riders and different athletes, you see mistakes happen in more, maybe heavy, I don't know, like heavy battles or, heavy moments where, they start really trying hard because, they got something to fight for, and then you see mistakes. And so that's a tricky thing too, is how do you focus, but also, try not over try. And I, even me right now, I think I'm learning about myself that maybe when I'm, find myself drifting in focus, I catch it and then try to focus, but then in the mirror trying to focus, I start over trying, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a complex thing, and I probably know too much for my own good.
Well, I think we all know by now that you're I don't know if the term overthinker is correct. Like you definitely analyze everything. So for somebody, if you're struggling with something like that in the mental side, then you start trying to figure out, break it all down, and you're focusing on that even more. And maybe, it could be the spiral down, right? Of just constantly trying to figure out what this means. Yeah.
When you do an action, then, at the same time you're doing it, you're questioning if you're doing it right or wrong or, indifferent. Cause I just went over 3 different theories, and maybe this is why I'm having my problems.
What does Will Hahn say? Is he helping you on the mental side at all?
We work with someone else. He's kind of not pass the torch, but he's kind of, he's on the Zoom meetings and with my mental coach, and I would say, like, he would say I overthink it for sure, time to time, and I just don't know any different. It's like, it's kind of in my nature.
Yeah, that's how you're wired.
And so it's tricky, because anytime someone says I'm overthinking, it's like, no, you're underthinking, or like, no, you don't understand.
I hate that stigma.
It's so tricky. No one who's ever been called an overthinker is like, yeah, you're totally right.
Sure. No, yeah, it's how you're wired. My son's the same way. So right. It's not overthinking. Yeah. It's thinking.
Yeah,
for you, it's thinking.
Exactly. I struggle with the same thing. People are like, oh, you just need to quit overthinking. I'm like, no, I'm just thinking about it.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Michael. Go ahead, buddy.
I think there's, in life, there's like paralysis of overanalysis, right? And I think there's even like a biblical proverb where it's like, if you watch the clouds and you're waiting for the season to happen, you'll never sow. And, if you wait till it rains, then you'll never reap. And it's kind of this idea is like, if you, in life, you're waiting for the right conditions, like, you'll never move. Mm-hmm. And in that, I do agree that there's, certainly an issue in overthinking. I think that's a more direct application of the term. But yeah, I'm overthinking the concept of overthinking. So here we go.
That's funny.
Go ahead, Scotty.
Hey, so I kind of wanted to know maybe what was one of the most unexpected things, or maybe biggest developments in your life on or off the bike that you've kind of gone through this year.
Ooh, unexpected things or biggest developments.
Other than a broken neck?
Yeah, well, I didn't know that going into this.
Yeah, you don't expect a broken neck. And what you guys don't expect is that I actually got married this off season.
What?
So I asked a good question.
I did. Yeah, broke my neck, then got married. So
broke your neck.
Time out.
Yeah, I got the brace off like the week of.
Time out for a second.
Okay.
Like, how long were you dating this girl?
For a year and like 7 months.
Okay. I knew you were dating somebody. I didn't realize it'd been that long. Congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Very happily married. She is
good for you.
Wonderful. So has been almost 2 months. So
good for you.
Yeah,
man.
Crazy.
Yeah, well, that's awesome.
I've had the craziest off season.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Is she allowing any homeless people to stay with you?
No.
Okay.
Well, actually, she may not be opposed at some point in the future.
Right.
I think very early on, I told her that, like, I am someone who wants to practice radical generosity. And told her, like, if you're going to kind of, like, this is something you really want to think about doing, then, like, I gave her all the, stuff up front. And then, we worked things out for, year and 7 months. And
yeah, good for you, man. Awesome. Good for you. That's a good answer, Scotty. That was big.
Yeah, see, that's why I asked the right questions.
So it wasn't a surprise to me, but it was a surprise to you guys.
Yeah. Hey, that works for us. Let's get to the new bike real quick, because you got a new bike, right?
Yes, sir.
How is the new bike compared to the old bike? What do you like about it? What needs improvement for you? Yeah,
so what do I like? So I rode the stock bike first, like bone stock, on some outdoors, and I was pretty impressed. Like, speed wise, like, the power was pretty good. The suspension, stock was quite soft for me. And then I don't know, just the general handling I thought was pretty good. I feel like the bike is a little bit more, it sits a little bit taller than the last bike, and I feel like it's a little bit more stable.
Okay.
The last bike had some twitchiness in the front that we were, I think we were working through kind of all year. I didn't change much. Like, I'm the type of guy, like, I'm not going to blame the bike. I'm going to take a lot of responsibility on myself. And I'm learning that there's a lot to be gained, and I've been learning that, but even more so the older I get, the more picky I get. I would say the thing that like needs to be improved still is I think we can go stiffer still. They started me off on some stuff that like on Supercross that was pretty soft, and then I think day 2 I was like, all right, give me some stiffer stuff. So then we went stiffer, and I think we need to go stiffer still. I tried a stiffer fork today, and it was a lot better. So and it's kind of the idea. So you guys might be suspension gurus, but I'm still learning. So one of the things I learned today is like, when you have to really trust the bike in a corner and like really ask it to do a lot and turn sharp, you want something that's stiff and that's not going to give, because it gives you a more direct feel in the corner, and then it also it gives you more room to go even faster, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So if you're too deep in the stroke, then it gets a little bit, I don't know, a little bit more unpredictable, I think. And so a lot of people, their stuff feels really stiff to them, but it's because it's soft and they're riding deep in the stroke. And so it's giving them a harsh feeling, but it's actually too soft, where the top of the stroke is more plush. So if you have it so stiff that you're only using the top of the stroke and occasionally you get deeper, then it's going to feel softer, but it's actually going to be stiffer.
I'm going to tell you that that conversation that you just gave me this weekend, I rode, and I was riding my YZ250, which I don't ride much. It was so uncomfortable. I couldn't figure out what was going on with the suspension. I reached out to my suspension guy. I reached out to Chris Kiefer. Everything they said made very little sense to me. What you just said made all the sense in the world. So thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
I feel like I could go ride this weekend and figure my problem out now, Scotty.
I want to thank you too, because I'm riding that bike this weekend, so I really appreciate that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So we rode a different track, and I got it pretty comfortable, and I started, getting up to pretty good speed and consistent laps, and then we went to another track, and it had a little bit steeper transitions, a little bit more awkward, a little rougher. And I didn't have the best of day. And then later that day, I was like thinking about it, thinking, there I go again. And I realized all the transitions were steeper and harsher. So because they were putting me deeper in the stroke.
Yep.
And then I would feel like unsure as to, sometimes when it goes deep in the stroke, it wants to pull one way or another in the rhythms. And, that's why sometimes people will go for a really big jump and they'll like go sideways, or like, when they land, or overshoot something, they go shoot off sideways one way or another. And it just, it has to do with the balance of the bike. And, but yeah, anyway, so there was part of that. And then another part of it was there was some hard landings, like into the turns. And I was feeling like there was a pause in the middle of my corner. But what was happening is, because my suspension wasn't stiff enough, I would land, and then it would go down and then back up, and then I would be in the middle of the turn. Instead of, if it was stiffer, then it would be more one motion and it wouldn't go down quite as much. And then by the time I got to the turn, it would plant, because it's not having quite as much up and down motion. Yeah. And so I felt like super rushed on my entry to corners, and I couldn't roll it like I'm used to, because it was wanting to, push me high, or, my front end was getting light where I wanted to cut down. And it's because it just wasn't taking that impact quite right.
I like the insight to that. That really helped me out quite a bit. No joke.
Dark Side's over here.
Like, I want to go load up, go ride right now. We've got to get some lights.
He's got the paper smoking over there. He's writing notes down so fast.
Go ahead, Scott. We got one more for you, Michael, and we're going to let you go.
Yeah.
So, especially off of what we've talked about this evening, and it seems like you've kind of you're in a really good mental headspace and everything. I just kind of wanted you to compare your expectations of going into this season compared to some expectations that you've had seasons prior.
Yeah. So I actually haven't fully set my goals yet. I plan to do that within the next week. However, just thinking about where they might go. Expectations last year were really high, and I think I underwhelmed. I think obviously I had some highs, and I reached some places that I haven't reached. And I think I just reached a level of riding that I haven't reached. And so this year, I think the goals in some way are going to be similar, because I obviously I want to win the championship, and it's time. It's win or no one's happy, and neither will I be. And I always, and the thing is though, it's like it's so tricky, because I don't want to focus on when I'm racing, I don't want to focus on the result. I want to focus on my performance, and what do I have to do to have a winning performance. And not everything's in my control. I can't control how my performance goes entirely, and there's all sorts of stuff that has to go right. But I want to be proud every day and every race, every weekend, that I executed what I knew to do well. And if I have internally and mentally a winning performance, and I was focused at a level that I'm happy with, then the results they'll happen naturally. So I think it's I think that speaks kind of close to your question. I don't know if that's
I like that. Like you say if I do these things right, then that other stuff will just happen. And I that has been one of the things that I'm 32 years old now, and I didn't learn that for a long time. And I always would try to fight and fix all the details, rather than just doing what I need to be doing, and then letting all that stuff work itself out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think narrowing it down. What's interesting? I've heard this. I don't know that it's true, but so how like some athletes, they just go on like incredible years, right? Where they win everything in their sport, and like Michael Phelps, like going to the Olympics and win everything, right? Mm-hmm. It's like most of those guys, if you ask them after the fact, like if they expected to have such dominance, they don't really expect it. And the reason is because they're not thinking about the result. They're thinking about the steps of performance. And because they're thinking about the steps of performance, the results happen. But the people that are caught up in the results, usually end up missing on the results.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff tonight, Michael. Really, it's always so insightful talking to you. You're just, as we've said many times, you're a different personality in this sport, and I love hearing your insight.
I appreciate that. So
absolutely,
yeah, it's fun. It's fun having it's fun getting interviewed. People, it's a nice thing when people care what you have to say.
Well, I've been a fan of yours since I met you in 18.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, no, it's been a bit. It's been a bit.
Yeah, sitting there.
We have a special relationship. You were like big fan before anyone was.
Yeah. I think it was maybe St. Louis or something. You were there at the press conference with your mom, and I don't remember what round it was. I want to say it was St. Louis, but that might not be right. But
thank you so much, and you'll have to meet my wife.
I can't wait. I will definitely come say hi. I'll be at a lot of races this year now that I work for Vital. I don't know if you knew that, but I'll be at a lot of races, so I will definitely come by and visit.